Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the case is, wherever you are tuning in from this wonderful planet of ours, as long as you're on this planet. Well, you never know. Errol, we might have people from Mars tuning in. You know what I mean? How global we're becoming. Well, I guess if it's on another planet, it's more than global, right? This is mad. You never know. We could have people tuning in from Mars, Saturn, all sorts. But you're all very welcome. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Grizz Show. Of course, Daily Grizz Show is supposed to be sort of a roundup of all footballing headlines of the day. Not much going on, so I thought I'd turn this into sort of a bit of a Liverpool chat. And when there's a Liverpool chat, I've got to get some Liverpool people involved. And of course, I've got my brother Errol in the building. Errol, what's going on? You good?
Yeah, man, I'm blessed. Thank you for having us back. Looking forward to it. It's getting close to the season now, so it won't be long before all the talking stops. There's been a lot of waffle. There's been a lot of chat back and forth, and that's only right. It's the off season, it's the transfer season, it's silly season, so everybody can get a little bit wild with their takes. There's a lot of hot takes floating about right now, and I'm here for it. But in 9 or 8 days, all that has to stop, because we will start to see the men from the boys get separated week on week. So I'm looking forward to the season kicking off again soon.
Absolutely. Load of hot takes, wild takes, but that's the beauty and the amazing nature of football when there's so many different involvements of opinions and people and all sorts. But of course,
illusions in the air.
Absolutely. But very soon very soon there will be like a separation of boys to men, and we know what happens after that. But of course, first and foremost, of course, Errol's a regular, everyone knows that, but I've got a very, very special guest joining us today. Me and Mo have known each other for, wow, I'd say about 3 years now, possibly 3-4 years, if not more, in fact. And it's amazing that it's the first time we've caught each other on a live stream. You're so welcome, Mo Chatra of Anfield Index. Thank you very much for coming on.
Nice one, Grace. Finally glad to be back talking to you. You're right. We did start getting to know each other about 4 years ago.
Yeah, possibly more. Yeah.
And as you say, finally together on the stream on YouTube at last. So really glad to be on the show. So thanks for having me on.
No problem. It's amazing. Lads, we must address the breaking news. Well, I always like to address sort of actual news in terms of opposed to sort of rumors and whatnot. And something that I wanted to get your guys' opinion on, where is it gone, is the news that, here we go. Jules Koundé, Errol, has finally joined Barcelona after all the drama and hoo-ha of the Chelsea the Chelsea chase. My God, this has been messy, isn't it? This is Chelsea. Look, I had a lot of Chelsea fans on my case, and no doubt they'll probably come to the stream in a minute as well when they realize I'm speaking about their club again. But this is quite embarrassing if you're a Chelsea fan, the way this is all panning out this summer, isn't it? Another rejection.
Yeah, they're getting peppered hard at the moment, and it's Barcelona as well. They just keep cherry picking. It's like they've shared the exam papers and they've literally tried to copy when they've been given all the wrong answers. And Barcelona have just picked them off one by one and said, "Yeah, we'll have him. And obviously, there's the legacy of Barcelona, and there's obviously the heritage that Barcelona have, which not many clubs around world football can compete with on the best day. So there's no shame to lose a player to Barcelona. What I find more shameful in this circumstance is Barcelona, and we've got the best guy to talk to about finances. Barcelona's financial position right now, they shouldn't really be able to compete. And I think, I wanted to say this the other day as well when I was online. I think it's a case of when Roman had the club, he wasn't just sending agents and delegates to go and sort these deals. He was sending the Russian mafia hitmen to make sure that man was signing on the dotted line. Now you remove your mafia mob. You got no mob to make these deals come true. You're seeing what the actual the run-ins of a football, how it should be ran with with shirts and ties aren't actually equipped to do the job to the level that is required for a club the size of Chelsea. So it's a hot take for Liverpool fans because we can just sit back and laugh at it. But from a Chelsea perspective, they found it really uncomfortable because they've only really been able to secure Koulibaly and Sterling so far. And a lot of Chelsea fans are of the opinion towards the back end of last season that there was a massive rebuild needed. They knew that they was going to lose a certain amount of players due to contracts running down. So I think from them, they had higher expectations in terms of the volume of players. Don't get me wrong, they've still been able to get a good standard in the two that I mentioned. But in terms of the actual numbers, they haven't pulled that off. And I think they will consider that to be quite a loss for them. They'll have to hold that for a while.
Mo Errol made a very good point. And it's amazing that I've got you on today. He said, you're the best man to speak about financials, and you are. So I'm so blessed to have you on today. So many questions, so many people asking, how is Barcelona managing to do this? How is a club in so much debt, open debt, admitted debt, like the books are there, they speak about it. How are they managing to pull this off? I know the answer is probably very complex, but try your best, sir. For us, mere laymen.
Yeah, layman's terms only.
Yeah.
I'll try my best. Right. So, in the simplest way I can explain it, they are almost remortgaging the club in order to finance all of these deals. You know, Xavi came out with his long wish list of players that he wanted to come into Barcelona. He presented it to the board and said, right, these are the man I want, and you've got to get them for me one way or another, by hook or by crook. Make it happen. I don't care how, I don't care when, I don't care why, just make it happen. So what they have done is sell a portion of revenue streams, notably broadcast revenue. Broadcast revenue is one of the big income streams for any football club. And what they have done is sell, I think it's 20 or 25 years of 25% stake in TV revenue. So I think, just for the sake of argument, say if their TV revenue is 160 million euros a year, they have sold 25% of that. So the people that have bought this, they will receive 40 million of that. That's 25% every year for 20 or 25 years. And in return, this company has paid Barcelona, I think it's in the region of 300-400 million euros. And then on top of that,
sorry, Mo, is that upfront then that they get that money?
Yes, that's right. And then on top of that broadcast revenue being sold off, 25% of that, there's also a portion of another revenue stream, which is to do with the commercial side that has also been sold off. And so ultimately, Barcelona will generate less money in the future because they're selling off income that they'll make in the future for 20, 25 years in order to get some money in now. They have got mad cash flow problems, seriously mad. And this was the only opportunity they had to bring in any players. If they didn't get this over the line, they would not only have not been able to sign the Lewandowskis and all these others that have come in, they would have had to probably move on other players. And on top of that, we've got the Frankie de Jong situation, which is absolute banter because, Man United fans, as you know, they thought he was over the line weeks ago. And yet that is all just turned into a complete and utter shit show because the players refusing to leave. Barcelona don't want to pay the man. And so they're stuck in limbo on both sides. And the implication of De Jong staying at Barcelona is that one of Lewandowski or Rafinha, even though have signed for the club, may not be able to actually join the club because of the La Liga salary cap. So it is a complex situation, but they sold off and remortgaged essentially some of the crown jewels in order to get some money in now in order to facilitate these deals.
So can I ask, sorry, no one will let you finish.
And I think the most short-sighted aspect of all of this is that a lot of this money is going on players that are advancing years, who may be able to give a year, 2, 3, 4 years, instead of buying up the cream of the crop who are aged about 22, 23, who could give the club 10 years. They're buying players that will only give them 2 or 3 years, and that's about it. And that's why it's so short-sighted. And I think it's great because, Barcelona, yes, they potentially will be a threat this season, but there's so much change. One of the reasons Liverpool is so great is that we don't make a massive change to the dressing room one season to the next. It's all incremental. It's 2 or 3 players. It's about not unbalancing that dressing room vibe, that culture, that ethos. When you're introducing 6, 7, 8, 9 players into a dressing room, the dynamics of it can change significantly, especially when you're bringing in big characters like Barcelona have done.
It's that. Sorry, I know, Errol, you wanted to ask something very quickly, and so hold that. Don't forget that, because you aren't going to get this opportunity to ask Mo questions again. Yeah, so just don't forget that. Make a note of it, or whatever you want to do. But what I was going to say, Mo, one of the points that you made there that really got me thinking, and it's very understated, is about the fact that one of the accusations of Liverpool, I don't know about accusations, but some of the opinions that amongst the fan base is we don't buy enough, and it's very valid in certain situations. But also the point that you made about one of the reasons why we don't is our manager doesn't just believe in not rotating, but sort of increasing his squad. He likes familiarity, as you said, amongst the players. And this kind of approach, like a Barcelona or a Madrid, or I don't know, all these other clubs, sort of where there's 6, 7 players coming in and out. It's not for every coach, is it, Mo? That's very important that people understand and know this as well.
Continuity is so important. If you look at the great clubs over the last 30, 40 years, your AC Milans, your Barca's, the prime Barca, Manchester United even, when they were at their absolute peak, what they did was ensure that there was that continuity from season on season where, okay, there might have been 3 or 4 players that came in, 3 or 4 players that left, but they try their best to ensure that the culture that was instilled, that winning mentality, was retained. And it can be very easily unsettled by bringing in maybe too many players or big characters who can disrupt the dressing room. And we saw that beautifully a year ago when United signed Mr. Ronaldo. And that was one of the best things that could have happened to us as Liverpool fans, because that gave us 12 months of absolute banter where, Ronaldo, yes, he scored 18 goals in the Premier League, but in every other respect, he's been an absolutely disastrous signing for United. He's unsettled that dressing room. He's caused divisions in that dressing room. He's unsettled players. He's dropped the confidence of players around him. He's the most biggest of egos in the whole of world football. And he brought all of that to United dressing room. And I was ecstatic when that happened.
Oh, I was over the moon as well. Errol, do you remember what I was going to
say? Yeah. No. So my thing is I like me Need for Speed and Fast and Furious back in the day. So when you've got a supercar and you're racing against other supercars, one addition to me seems like you put your NOS in to kind of get you a little bit ahead of the chasing pack. But NOS is only a short burst of what we'd call like success or a boost for your momentum. How long do you feel this current model that Barcelona have kind of put themselves on this path is going to be sustainable for? How long can this current model get them that juice that they need to kind of build anything for the next 10 to 15 years?
And that's the thing. And that's a great question. And what they have done is not something they can go and do next year or the year after. They have sold off huge chunks of their future revenue. They can't just go and do that next year or the year after. There aren't other big assets that they can sell. They can probably sell the new camp to someone and say, okay, you buy it off us and then we'll rent it off you, in the way that I think Derby County did, where their owner and that owner of that club, Mel Morris, made a complete mess of Derby County, and they're now in League One. And I'm not saying that obviously Barcelona are going to drop down leagues in Spain, but what they've done is not sustainable in the slightest. It's all about putting in cash into the pocket now in order to sign the players that Xavi wanted. That model will not be available next year or the year after or the year after that. So if this is a complete flop and a failure, they really have very few other places to turn. And again, great for Liverpool in terms of wanting to go and compete at the top level in Europe and vying for the Champions League. Not so great for Barcelona if it all goes wrong, and it very easily could.
Do you know what it speaks to me? It basically tells me that in 3 to 4 years' time, they can't come knocking for Núñez or Diaz. You can rule them two players getting tapped up by Barcelona any day now.
But do you know what it is, guys? I want to ask both. Either of you can answer this. And I'm of the opinion this is totally based on an almost knowing the Super Leagues is around the corner. I don't know what you guys think, because I think this is so set up for the Super League to bail them out almost. I think they're doing this. It's all calculated. Otherwise, it can't make sense more of it. Can you make sense of it otherwise? I don't know. How is this sustainable in the long term, as you said? And if it goes wrong, this is... I don't know if we ever... when can we ever rule out? I think so. We always tend to rule out sort of, the total finishing of a major institution like a Barcelona or Real Madrid, Man United. Something always bails them out. Even like Liverpool. Do you remember a few years ago when around the Hicks and Gillette, we were sort of so close to, whatever we were so close to? I don't think we were really, but okay, people suggesting we were.
On paper.
On paper. Super League is the only way out, surely, Mo? Or is there are they covered? Do you think they know what they're doing?
I don't think they know what they're doing in the slightest, other than it's all about, right, get some money in now. And all desperate businesses, when they get to that stage where things are going wrong, they will look for any and every opportunity to just bring in money. It's like, we don't care where it's from. We don't care what the source is. Let's just get the money in and worry about it later on. Now, in answer to your question, I think that I've had guests on my podcast on Anfield Index called Money Talks who have discussed this subject with me about, well, is the European Super League dead and buried? Is it gone? And the guests I've spoken to, and there are experts in the field, have said, no, we don't think it is. We think it will come back in some form or fashion. They'll let it all simmer down. They'll let Gary Neville and Gara, pipe down. And, obviously they were the cheerleaders behind, oh, this is outrageous. We can't have this coming along and ruining football. And I think it will come back in some form or fashion, not in the same guise, not in the same concept it was necessarily presented last year. But you're right, Grizz. I think that is the only way for Barcelona to be financially viable again, because they know that they can't compete with the Premier League when it comes to TV money. Across the globe, it's the Premier League that people care about, not La Liga. Yes, Barcelona and Real Madrid are absolutely enormous. Their popularity is bigger than a Liverpool and a Manchester United if you look at things like social media following. However, it's the Premier League that people will pay money for. And that is why the likes of Real Madrid and Juventus and Barcelona have been pushing this even when it was apparently dead and buried last year. They continue to go on about it. They're even going through the courts about the whole thing. They will work with UEFA and others to try and make it happen in some form or fashion. Whether it's 2 years down the line, 3 years, 5 years, it will come back.
No, absolutely. I think that's nailed on. I think that's their long-term plan. They know that's coming. Legal Man says, you forget in the La Liga, Barcelona and Madrid get over 65% of Spanish TV rights. That's true as well. I'm not sure if we mentioned that, but that's true as well. But talking about sort of clubs not knowing what they're doing, and all over the place. Errol's smiling already.
The way you just.
Well, that's one of my very couple of those skills. I've only got a couple of skills in life, and that's one of the skills. The way I segue. It's official, people. Confirmed. Dwight McNeil has signed for Everton from Burnley for an undisclosed fee. You're damn right you want to keep that undisclosed. The forward penning a 5-year deal until the end of June 2027, club statement announces. Obviously goes on to say, interested in Khanage. They sold him to the PSG, wasn't it, in the first place? So, okay, great business, more great business from the Ev. Lads, Dwight McNeil, what are we talking about? Are we Errol fan of Dwight McNeil? Okay, so I'll just get my opinion out of the way because mine's the most irrelevant. Then we'll get to use to. I think he's a good player. At one stage, I would have liked him at Liverpool as a possibility of an understudy to Robertson. I think he'd be a good. I think I just had one of these. When you have a hot take in your head, right? And I had a hot take about Dwight McNeil being a very good modern day fullback if Pep Linders and Jurgen Klopp got hold of him. But that was very quickly extinguished from my brain. But what's your thoughts on this player and the deal?
I feel like the Everton board forgot that Burnley went down last year. They're buying a couple of these basement players from a club that, haven't really cut it in the Premier League. But it speaks to what I was saying when we did the show last week, Grizz, about our predictions for the league. These are the type of players that have been in and around the league, not necessarily, apart from last season where Burnley obviously inevitably went down, but it was that style of football that had been keeping a Burnley in the league for a while, knowing that you can just dig deep. We're not going to look to play expansive. We just want players that are compact, composed on the ball, and are able to deliver basic instructions. And that's what it screams to me. And again, there's no salt in that from a Liverpool perspective. I just think that's where Everton need to be. They need to have safe bets. They don't need to start going for these fancy names. Like they had that Moise Keane thinking he was going to take them to the next level, and he's coming, he's looked around, Edison and Finch Farm thought, what the fuck's this? Be asked. Do you know what I mean? You don't need the egos right now. They need seasoned pros that understand the English game, that want to re-establish themselves as Premier League level. And from that perspective, I can completely get it. I don't think it's going to set the world alight. I don't think Everton fans are going to be frothing at the mouth that they've got Dwight McNeil by any stretch of the imagination. But in terms of a shrewd bit of business, perhaps, maybe that is a little bit, it is probably shrewd of them. But it just speaks to the level that they're currently at, which is what I was saying last week, mate. Like, I think they'll be safe, but they're not going to be safe by playing any great football. They're going to be safe by virtue of having shit players that are just shit enough or good enough to still be in the league.
Mo, your views, and I'm sure they're very brief, on Dwight McNeil to Everton.
Well, right. So I think when we have played Burnley even, McNeil was probably the player that impressed me the most.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not saying much. Burnley, hardly a team full of, unbelievable players, are they? But, he showed a bit of something. He's definitely at the kind of level that he belongs by joining Everton. And, Everton are great in my view because it's been wonderful as Liverpool fans the last 4 or 5 years, the rise under Klopp, winning the Premier League, Champions League, etc. All whilst clubs like United and Everton have become complete jokes, complete banter clubs. It's made it all the better, these last few years. So, Everton are the gift that keeps on giving. And, they were a complete and utter joke last year. And I think they'll be a complete and utter joke next season. And, they've got that utter fraud of a manager in Lampard. And, I don't think he'll be lasting for the whole season. And that's partly why I've got my own theory that they brought in McNeil because they've got already a line. Exactly.
Oh, wow. That is
speed dial.
I tell you what, that is a shout. That is an absolute, I didn't even think of it that way and that deep.
Perfect match.
Absolutely. If you're in a relegation battle, who are you going to call?
Dyche.
Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got that Tarkowski as well, haven't you? You've got the centre back from there as well. So there's a couple. reunion.
Yeah.
Wow, they brought in Tarkowski, McNeil. This all makes sense now. I tell you what, if that happens, there'll be a few conspiracy theories flying about. If that happens now, you know,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it first. We're an exclusive on Grizz Khan TV from Mr. Mo. Not bad. But listen, let's get on to some serious clubs and let's talk about some serious teams and some serious setups. And no more serious setup than Liverpool Football Club, who had their last training session before they set off back to Liverpool. My God! First and foremost, have you guys enjoyed the scenic pictures? I mean, this is amazing. Wouldn't we like to be playing football in some of that scenery? Errol, tour's over pretty much now. Obviously, I'm assuming they're probably on their way back now. They've had their last final training session. Sort of a couple of friendlies with Leipzig first in Germany and Salzburg. Yeah. Overall, would you make of the tour? Happy with it? Content? Just a general review.
Yeah, I'm content, bro. Like, as the only thing that I really ever truly want to see from a preseason is the fitness level, the application of how the young players and to take that step up. Because whether or not we like it or not, the preseason for the younger crop of players is a step up. You want to see them competing. You want to see how much bite or hunger and desire they've got to kind of make a mark in Klopp's plans for the season, because we've got to remember it's going to be a long season, extended because of the World Cup as well. So even though we'll get that break and they'll get a chance to show what they're capable of again, then there's no better time than pre-season to show that you're going to hit the ground running and that you are, if ever needed to be called upon, you're ready and available. I think, especially for the likes of the League Cup, the Community Shield coming up as well, it'd be nice to be in and around the team, the match day squad. So I think that's what I look for. And then obviously the injuries. Now, we currently know where Alisson's up to and he won't feature on the weekend. Hopefully he'll be available for the first game of the season against Fulham. So, you know, we just got to keep our fingers crossed for that. I think the two real disappointments, again, the Ox not being able to complete a full pre-season and not at least put it, because for me, it's about you're not the young crop of players. You're one of the seasoned, pros within our squad. You're a veteran in this thing from a Liverpool's perspective. And if your body's not robust enough to go through the pre-season for whatever reason, you're not really going to nail down a place in this squad this year. I would have rather him done that based on his performances. If we could have all looked and judged Ox on his performance, said he's just not up to it and you can't cut it, sell him and cut your loss. At this point, we've had some really good performances out of him over the years, but unfortunately, injuries have hampered his progression and his chances of actually nailing down a starting position within this squad. So the fact that he has been injured now makes it extremely more difficult for us to maneuver and move away from him. It makes it difficult for him to maneuver away from the club as well. So what happens to him for the next 12 months is a mystery to all of us at the moment. And then the other one being Jota. He was another one where I felt like after the injury he had in the middle of last season, we just needed to get him fit and firing again, get him that little bit of confidence, get him firing on all cylinders. And he's good to go, whether we want to start him through the middle until Nunes is ready and we can kind of unleash him, or we need to bring him off the bench because we want an explosive substitution. The fact that he's not readily available for us now as well is a little bit of a knock from the squad's perspective, because we know he guarantees goals. He's a goal scorer, he's a poacher, he's a fox in the box, all of those things. We know he gets goals and bangs. So those are the downsides to me. But I think we can take away some comfort from the youngsters, as I mentioned before. The fact that Harvey Elliott, he looks like he's lean, he looks in shape, he looks like he's ready to go and raring for the season ahead. Carvalho, he looks like an exceptional talent. The one thing from a fan's perspective, I think at the moment, is it's going to be that debate of where do we play and where is he going to have his best minutes on the pitch for us as a Liverpool team? Where are we going to get the most out of him? Is he going to be too lightweight and not enough pace for what we want on the wings? Is he going to be strong enough and not get overrun in the midfield? He probably just seems to be a little bit half and half for me at the moment, but in terms of the actual talent, he's phenomenal. So I'm more than content, because from what I've seen from our players, there's nothing that's got me worried in terms of an individual performance that makes me think, oh, they're not going to be ready come the first game of the season.
Yeah, I'm probably echo a lot of what Errol said there, Mo. but I want to get your opinion, of course, on the overall. When I say success and failure, it's preseason training, but you know what I mean. Sort of, what kind of mood has it set Liverpool fans in? Do you think this tour? I'm going to be honest. Overall, I'm okay with it. I'm slightly on the downside with the injury to Diogo Jota, because I think it's crucial. I think that's a crucial injury. I think is a proper setback for us because of the fact that we've brought in a young striker, record fee potentially, who would have loved to be eased in as opposed to possibly. I mean, we're going to speak about Bobby in a little while as well, but possibly being thrust more into the spotlight than he may have been if Jota was already there, especially given the start that Jota made to his Liverpool career. I think he would have had a lot to not prove, because in my eyes, I think he proved a lot of doubters wrong, but he would have had the bit between his teeth, Mo, because a lot of people have gone to sleep on Diogo Jota and speaking about the absence of Mane and Darwin Núñez, but I've forgotten that we had a Diogo Jota there. I think that's been my biggest down part of the tour. Of course, the Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. I want to get your opinion on what do you think happens with Oxlade-Chamberlain now, and just your overall mood after this tour now.
Yeah, I think that what fans definitely shouldn't be doing is reading too much into the results from pre-season. Yeah, I mean, of course, we have had a couple of disappointing results, but, pre-season is all about, what goes on off the pitch more than what goes on the pitch. So, like where we lost to United, most of those goals were scored against our under-11s. So
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's true though, because I don't think many of us have even heard of the two fullbacks that played in that game. Am I right? I mean, maybe I'm doubting, maybe I'm disrespecting you guys' knowledge about the under-18s, but I didn't.
I didn't, bro. I'm not going to lie.
They're unfamiliar to me.
I'm not going to profess they've been on my radar because they've not.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Exactly. So, and, it's about just, getting the fitness levels up. And one of the things that we've heard about is that all of the players were really put through their paces in training over in Austria. And that for Klopp and Linders is far more important than the 90 minutes, that we've had to play against both Leipzig and then Salzburg. And, surely, the 5-0 result was good. And it was great for the confidence of Núñez to score 4 goals and, get off the mark. But, it's all about building the fitness levels up. And let me just give you a very quick point, just to illustrate my point. 1920, we had an amazing season. Our Premier League record was crazy. But go back to pre-season 2019. We lost to Dortmund. We lost to Sevilla. We lost to Napoli. We drew to Sporting. We only won. We had a couple of very easy games against Bradford and Tranmere, which we won. But the only meaningful game that we won in that pre-season was against Lyon. All the other games, three of the other 4 we lost. One of them we drew. So that hardly inspired confidence back then. And I'm sure, we might have had a few tweets from three years ago where you were saying, oh, look, why aren't we signing anyone? Who's this Sepp van den Berg? We just got gone and won the Champions League final. A lot of fume. And yet we went on to secure the Premier League title by a canter.
Christmas.
Pretty much, yeah. And what was it, 98, 99 points? And, we took our foot off the pedal. Half the players had hangovers in the final few weeks of the season. Otherwise, we would have scored a record points total of 103, 104, 105 points.
No doubt, Mo, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, don't read too much into the results. I think if the coaches are happy with what's going on in terms of the training sessions, about building the camaraderie, we've seen videos about, the Vanilla Ice video, which was great, and all these other things that have been going on. It's all about building that camaraderie. It's the stuff I talked about earlier on. It's about maintaining that. It's good. We've built it up over a number of years, and it's about integrating these new players and showing them the way, showing them not only how we do things on the pitch, but off the pitch. And that's what it's really about.
And that's key, that as well, because Mo makes a good point in the sense that come the start of the season, Klopp's going to expect that this group of players to bleed blood, sweat, and tears for one another. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen.
No.
You don't get if you don't trust your partner next to you, you don't trust the person you're gonna. If you haven't got those or haven't formed that dynamic and that chemistry, and you say, "Oh, well, you're Liverpool, you're a top performing team, you're one of the best teams, you should just have it." No, it doesn't just happen overnight. You have to ingrain that. You have to massage that into your ethics and your thought process and your psyche as a team. And for me, when we go to these preseason things, it's as much about getting our physical bodies right, but mentally getting us in the right space, because the season's going to be long. It's going to be strenuous. There are going to be ups and downs, and there is going to be a break away from the season where other people have other agendas on their mind. So how can we keep this gel and this crop of players together and to feel as though they will go to war for each other? They will back each other on the pitch.
And that's a brilliant point by both of you, because if you see how when you people talk about a new manager bounce, for example, sometimes you can get a new player bounce as well, where a club brings in 5-6 players and they start off really well, and like Errol says, but when you're part, you can get that initial sort of new player bounce and everyone's playing well and you get a brilliant start to the season, very much like Chelsea. I mean, I know they didn't bring in 5-6, but Chelsea had it last season with the Lukaku and it won 5-6 games in a row and everyone thought. But if your squad and the unity there isn't absolute watertight, and the atmosphere around the club, again, Man United is probably the best example of last season, right? Added Varane, Ronaldo, Sancho, who else? I can't remember, but everyone thought this is it now, on the top of finishing second. But as soon as shit hits the fan, or there's some cracks appearing, what you talk about, Errol, sort of fighting for each other, it's all disintegrated. It's all gone to nothing. Especially when you're part of this league and this grueling campaign, because this is fucking grueling, people. This Premier League's not a joke, and I know we've not got over the line in a couple of seasons where we could have and should have. But the fact that, you look at other clubs where they bring in 5-6 players and they have the initial burst of new player bounce, which is the equivalent of the new coach bounce. If you haven't got that atmosphere and that unity like we absolutely have, and like Errol says, these guys will fight with each other. I mean, look, we can possibly, Mo, for example, Oxlade-Chamberlain, a very good example of someone who hasn't been a regular in the team, yet hasn't kicked up a fuss in media or any of the socials, not disunited, stays within, sort of knows what he's about, hasn't been part of the starting 11, but not kicking up a fuss. These are the kind of things that can only be built in camps like this, where you get together and the camaraderie and everything. It's very, very understated, isn't it, Mo, these kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things about this Liverpool team is it's always about being greater than the sum of its parts. I mean, certainly if you go back to, say, 17, 18, 18, 19, we played against teams where, on paper, we were up against stronger teams, and yet we blew them off the park. And the best example is Barcelona at Anfield. On paper, clearly a stronger team in certain areas of the pitch, notably with Messi. But it was that fighting spirit, that camaraderie, that belief in one another, that unity. That
we did it with the media up front. We did it with the media up front.
We had who was missing? Mane and Mo, weren't they? Both of them?
No, it was
Bobby.
It was Bobby.
Bobby. Yeah. Right, there we go. So I knew 2 of the 3 were missing, and everyone was writing us off, weren't they? Everyone was writing us off. But it was about that spirit, that collective unity that Klopp has instilled, which is something is so important to how he operates. And that is part of the reason why Liverpool Football Club is not one under Klopp that goes out and signs superstars, generally speaking. Yes, they have spent big money on the likes
on the right player, they feel, on the right player, yeah.
But certainly they try and avoid, if possible, to go for these superstar signings, one with big names that come in with, big egos, big reputations. because by and large, Klopp feels that I'd rather work with a group who are a bit more modest, a bit more down to the ground, and they'll work and do exactly what I want them to do. And they're easy to manage, and they're not ones that constantly need massaging their egos and all the rest of it. And that's part of what makes this team special, is the way that they have this unity, but also having players that ultimately are good, young, decent people. It's about having almost like a no dickhead policy.
Well, that's what James Milner said, didn't he?
Yeah,
James Milner said it. We just don't sign knobheads. He actually said those words, which is quite amusing at the time. A couple of super chats to get through. Philip H, who's a Newcastle fan, appreciate the support regularly in the chat. He says, I think all areas of the pitch Liverpool are strong in, except the attack. Jota definitely is a big miss. Right now, I think LFC finished second. I think Jota will be a miss. I'm gutted internally. I don't always show it, through, but I am speaking to you guys honestly. I'm really gutted for the guy. LFC R786 sent in a super chat. Appreciate the support. He says, Mo, you are correct, but we had a midfield and front three in their prime in 2019. I completely get why fans are worried we may just miss out on the Premier League and the Champions League. I think.
Well, can I respond to that?
Of course you can.
So if you look around at our rivals, look at Manchester City being our biggest rival at the moment in terms of vying for the Premier League. So this is a team that has signed Erling Haaland, who's clearly an elite talent, but he is a player that is injury prone. There's no questioning that. He is an injury prone player, and he will undoubtedly miss minutes for Manchester City, even if it's just 3 or 4 games or a handful of games. He is somebody that is not as resilient as, say, a Mo that hardly ever gets injured. On top of that, they've sold or moved on a number of key players, like Raheem, Fernandinho went on a free, and there's still rumours that Bernardo Silva is sought by Barcelona. And, the word was that he wanted to go last summer, but he agreed to give Pep one more season. And so he is likely to go, and he will be a big miss to that team. And if you look at their squad, it is not a big squad. If they operate to a core of about 18, 19, 20 top players, and then the rest are the likes of, that goalkeeper, Zach Steffen, and, players that are not all that good. And they rely on players staying fit for most of the season. And if they have injury issues, their squad can look very thin very easily. And I think ultimately, yes, Haaland is a strong signing, but I also think that if Bernardo Silva leaves, I feel their squad this coming season will be slightly weaker than the season just gone.
I think if Bernardo Silva leaves, hopefully he does. I can't see it happening. I think it'll be a mental move from City if they let Bernardo Silva go. But it may be out of their hands because Pep has said he doesn't keep unhappy players. Very much like Jurgen Klopp, who spoke about Sadio Mane again in the press conference. He said Sadio Mane came to us very early in proceedings and told us he wants a fresh challenge. And I was happy with him to let him go, which is very key. Again, what we're speaking about, unhappiness. If you're not unhappy or not happy, but if you want a fresh challenge, no problem. I want to come to you with this one. Sam sends in a super chat, says Carvalho struggled for pace on the left wing, which you suggested earlier. Looked better as the left 8. Thoughts on us getting another backup winger who can play both sides?
My personal thought is I don't think there's going to be another addition brought into the front line this season. I think Klopp's happy with his options. I think we'll see plenty of rotation anyway, naturally. And I think it'll be, again, with Klopp, it's always horses for courses. So he'll weigh up and he'll size up the opponent that he's playing. If he feels that we're going to have a lot of the ball and we need someone, then he's on the ball, someone that can kind of unpick a lock. He might drop him into that 8 on the left side, which again, I'm not opposed to. If we've got a lot of the ball, I'm quite happy with them playing as the 8 there. If we're going to kind of have 60-70% of the ball, it's the games like the West Hams that crop up potentially a Newcastle this season, where they'll just be up for that midfield battle, and they'll be telling the lads in the changes, if we can beat them in the midfield today, boys, there's a chance that we get all 3 points. It's those type of teams where I feel he probably isn't best suited in that position for me. You want the likes of a Thiago there. You probably want a Naby in the mix. You probably still consider Henderson available for a role in one of those type of games. In terms of where we go next in that evolution of the front three, I think we're quite set. I like what Mo was saying there about, you know, the transitions for the other teams, and the fact that, you know, City are in a bit of a transitional position as well as us in the likes of the players that they've let out and they've lost over this summer. I think we're smart in doing it. There's no point in us trying to transition in next season when other teams have settled with what they've got and they're building to it and they're just adding the final pieces to their jigsaws. I think we want to be in that position next season where we add the final piece. And before everyone comes at me, we can't add the midfield the next season. We're not going to win nothing, whatever. What will be. But I think where our squad's currently at, it's probably at the most complete Klopp has ever had it, from having an out-and-out forward, having what he needs in a Bobby to still be available. Touch wood, Bobby stays, and we've still got him available to us. And what he's got in Jota, we haven't had 3 number 9s down the middle that can offer us every single element of that game since he's come to the club. We've now got wingers that offer a more traditional winger in the Diaz-esque role that offers the frightening pace, the touch, the ability to beat a man on a dime. And then
the young Mane, pretty much when we bought, not young Mane, but when we bought Mane,
it's the same Mane that we had with the numbers from Southampton. It's
absolutely
in that same sort of mold. We just haven't went and bought a finished article. We haven't replaced Mane with, you know, Leroy Sané or Gnabry or somebody else who's just the finished article, and we're expecting the same output straight into this team. But we've bought in the same mold that we bought when we bought Mane, is what I'm saying. And the same with Salah. We know what we get from Salah now. So I think that complementary from three is sorted. Would I like the midfield to be more balanced? Yeah, I think the skill sets in our midfield is probably one which I will be critical of and say it's a little bit limited this season. But in terms of the volume and the numbers of players, we've got enough in there to rotate and get us through the majority of games, provided we've got the outlets that don't drop those stupid points and we have that little bit more composure and game control. I think we'll be in with the shout, and the defence speaks for itself. We've got 4, if not 3 of the best defenders, 1, 2, and 3 in the league. We've got 3 in the top 5, 100%, and we've got 4 in the top 10 defenders in the league, and possibly the best goalkeeper in the league as well. So in terms of the balanced squad, I do believe this is the most balanced it's been from a Klopp's perspective and the most complete it's been. So I'm looking forward to what we can offer, because I don't think it's going to be a great transitional season for us. We've got a few players we need to bed in, but in terms of transition, I don't think I think there are other teams in more transitional phases of their football and clubs and their journeys than what we are at the moment.
Sam follows that up. He says, who's going to rotate with Salah on the right? Jota? Mo, any suggestion who you would play? I wouldn't go with Jota. That's just my opinion.
Well, when Jota's played on the right, he generally hasn't impressed. I think, you know, he's stronger left-sided, sometimes down the middle, definitely not on the right. So it wouldn't be him. Elliott obviously has been playing there in pre-season. But I think that Klopp's long-term vision for him, if anything, is more advanced kind of right-sided midfield. And we saw some of that right at the beginning of last season until he got his unfortunate injury. So, yeah, I think, you know, if he did want to rotate, it'd possibly be Elliott. I can't really...
I'll tell you who I would do, and he's impressed me more than any other alternative that we've put out there in recent times. He hasn't been absolutely brilliant and great and stunning, but he's been the best option we've had, Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz, when he went over to the right-hand side, was dangerous because he can play there. He can go on the outside. He's got the speed of Salah to go on the outside, the trickery. I think that's a very viable option in my opinion, but obviously time will tell. And again, Mohamed Salah is probably the least forward. That's going to be one that you're going to look to rotate or be allowed to rotate, if you know what I mean. Mohamed Salah has just signed a new contract, which is very, very highly incentivized bonus-wise. So he's going to want to achieve every single bonus, and he's only going to achieve them if he's on the pitch. People speaking about sort of, you know, our attack and the evolution of our attack, and some people saying, oh, we haven't got the best of the best and Mane is going to be a huge loss. I get all that, but a lot of stories and rumors surfacing this last few days, Mo, about Bobby Firmino. Bobby Firmino, for me was, look, me and you spoke a lot privately about our front three do need sort of changing of the guard in the next couple of years, right? They've been together 5-6 years. They've been through everything, but no strike force in Premier League history has stayed together this long, a successful strike force. So all three's contracts were running down. Similar situation, which is quite a thing, actually, quite unique how we've done that. And we all kind of had an idea that one was going to be kept, one was going to be sold. Sorry, one was going to be renewed, one was going to be sold, and one was going to be let go on a free, let his contract run down, probably, possibly. Is that the way you thought? Is that the way it's panned out in terms of Salah being renewed, Mane being sold? And now it looks like the question is being asked about Bobby, yet we're saying no. But even though we're saying no to a sale, there's still no sign, unless you guys know otherwise, of a contract offer renewal. So it suggests to me that we're possibly happy to let him leave on a free. Is that how you saw it? And do you agree with that planning and thinking?
Yeah, that's how I did see it. And I'm not a big fan from a finance perspective of letting players that have high value.
No, you wouldn't be, Mr. Finance. You wouldn't be. Yeah.
But you know, putting the money aside for a second, he was absolutely elite going back to 18-19 and the early parts of 19-20. But we've had a good 2.5, coming up to 3 years where we've seen Bobby in decline. There's no getting away from that. There's no denying that. And he's not the player he once was. So I think that if there isn't a viable option in terms of an incoming, we have to keep him and lose him on a free next summer. And if that's how it pans out, then I'll be fine with that. He's a player that, on his day can still produce magic. And, those days are becoming fewer and fewer. But, there will be times, there will be occasions in this coming season where we're desperate for a goal. We need somebody to come off the bench to produce that bit of magic. And somebody like a Bobby Firmino is still capable of that. So, like I say, if we haven't got, for example, a Gnabry lined up for the final few weeks of this window, then I think it'd be madness to let him go, especially for only about 20 million euros to Juve. I think that would be a crazy decision. I would keep him as long as we haven't got anyone viable to come in to replace him. If we have got somebody good, then absolutely maybe cash in now and bring somebody that can offer a bit more in. But I don't hear any noise, any rumblings to suggest we've got anyone lined up. So I would keep him.
I think that kind of makes sense, doesn't it, Errol? Because I'm in total agreement with Mo. I love Bobby, absolute love Bobby. Before people say what I said about Mane, which if you actually analyze it, what I said about Mane turned out to be true, because Jurgen Klopp did eventually let him go. So I said what I said, Mo. If you don't know, is I said we've seen the best. What you've just said about Bobby Firmino. In terms of, I think we've seen the best of Sadio Mane. Now, people will interpret that how they want. You know how it works on social media. And people said, oh, Grizz said Sadio Mane is finished. No, I didn't. All I said was he's not top 3 to 5 attackers in world football anymore. Whilst we had him at his peak, he was top 3-5 attackers in world football. Now, that's not a slight on Sadio Mane. Maybe he's top 10 now. But what I meant was, I'm happy if we got a decent enough fee to move him on. And lo and behold, Liverpool done that. I'm of the same opinion in terms of Bobby Firmino, but I think you nailed it, where I don't think we've got anyone lined up, and we like to be planned. We like to be organized, like Jurgen Klopp has just spoke about Sadio Mane, isn't he?
That's the one. If I had to be critical of us, though, that's the one thing that I mean, and maybe I'm thinking of it the wrong way. Maybe Jota was always going to be Bobby's replacement. Whether Bobby ran down his contract,
I've said that before as well, Errol. I think Jota was brought long-term Bobby centrally, Diaz for Mane, and well, basically we bought 3 attackers, haven't we, in the last 3 windows, possibly 3 windows. Diaz, Jota, and Nunes. Yeah. So there you go. So maybe we are thinking ahead.
So but I was just going to say, from the flip side of it, though, maybe that's where I would have been critical, is if Bobby and Jota isn't his replacement. When you say it like that, it's hard to say that he's not. But if he isn't, and we're playing devil's advocate, there has to be somebody that Liverpool have got their eye on. And again, we don't necessarily go and buy like for like, but in the same way that we got Diaz, because we knew in terms of his ability and the way he plays football and his patterns of play could replicate what Mane was doing pre-Liverpool, we should find or look for somebody that can do and offer what Bobby does. But maybe Klopp just realises Bobby was rare as rock and horse shit. There are not many footballers that play in the Bobby Firmino mould. So we have to look for it in a different toolkit to find out an equally effective tool to do the same job. That could be, by proxy, Jota or Nunes. And we'll see which one rises to the top over the next 12 months.
Well, if we're being uber critical, while we are, and it's fine to be as well sometimes, got to try. Maybe Mo and Errol, guys, maybe Klopp knows what he's talking about, because Bobby hasn't had the impact that he had in the first 3 seasons, so in the title-winning season, the Champions League winning season, right? So maybe it's okay to suggest that a style or evolution of our attack is needed, and that the coaches have identified that, Pep Lijnders, Jurgen Klopp, and maybe let's put it out there, Jurgen Klopp and a certain Pep Guardiola have both decided to slightly revamp their attacks by going for more target man type strikers. Now, maybe they know something we don't, that there is many ways to skin a cat.
They've both been in the Prem long enough now to know that those type of strikers are bagsmen in the Prem. They're the type of strikers that have hurt City and Liverpool in recent years, where City have dropped points or where Liverpool have dropped points and drew. So there could be something in that, Grizz.
I don't think, and I agree, guys, I don't think Bobby was a viable option to be let go this late in the window, especially with the fresh new incoming of Nunes, and especially on top of that, the injury to Jota. And as Mo says, unless they've got something lined up, which I don't think they have, or, you never know with Liverpool, though, because we are pretty much one of the most organized teams behind the scenes, even though we may not
we keep our cards close to our chest, don't we? We don't really show our hand, do we?
Absolutely.
No dressing room leaks.
Absolutely.
Not round here.
Liverpool's 12th man sending a super chat says Bobby top 5 F9, but moves to top false nines, but moves to a 10 and disproves panelist. No, he'll prove us. He won't disprove us. We're actually speaking highly of him. He won't be disproving us. We actually think. What do you think about that role? About people often speak about Mo dipping slightly into the 10 role, and if there's a change of formation, he'd probably want to be suited more to that Mo. Do you like that theory?
Not so much. No, I think that in the kind of 4-3-3 setup that we've got, that is where Mo really excels. And if we move to, say, a 4-2-3-1, where Nunes was at that kind of fulcrum point, Mo is slightly deeper, I'm not sure he'd be quite as influential and effective. I could be wrong, but I'm not necessarily so convinced. I think that the way that we've set up, it works really well for Mo, and it plays to his strengths. And I'd be a bit less keen on making more of a playmaker, a bit deeper, playing as a 10. I think he's still our strongest goal threat, and we need to keep him, front and center where that's concerned.
Fair enough. Cousin Earl, he's not really my cousin, but I appreciate the super chat. He says the team isn't in the same phase that it was when Mane was purchased. It's more appropriate now that you're on top Europe to buy the finished article.
I don't.
You're nodding your head. Okay.
I don't particularly agree with that, because for us to have been at the top, it has only been a very short period of time. We've only risen to the top over the last 4 seasons, where you could say that we are one of Europe's top 3, 4, 5 clubs in the world. And it's been great from a Liverpool fan's perspective. We've been loving life. But in terms of our model and how we structure ourselves and the actual acquisitions that we then go and buy, that doesn't necessarily have to change, because for me, changing that is like what Man U did towards when they was at the top, and then they lost Sir Alex Ferguson. So they thought going down there, let's go and buy the finished article. Let's go buy a player that doesn't have anything else left to prove in world football because they're already established as top baller, means that we're going to continue the success. We want hungry lads that want to contribute to the history that this team have already, and the legacy that this team have already built. There's no point getting a guy who's got, even look at Thiago. We built the finished article in Thiago, but look at his application. They're very rare. Not every player you're going to buy from that top bracket is going to be a Thiago. There are going to be men that come and think, I can take my foot off the gas here. I've done my job. Everybody knows I'm a baller. Pass the ball to me. If I turn up, I turn up. If I don't, I don't. We don't need those type of personalities. I'd prefer us to get the young, hungry talent that want to still prove something and add to the legacy of this club, because what we've built and established is phenomenal. But there's still room for improvement. You don't get that room for improvement by buying people or players that already feel like the job's been done elsewhere.
Absolutely. Mo's going to smile when I ask him this question, and me and Mo know why, but it's just the way it's panned out that it's come to you next. LFC is 786 sends in a super chat. Please answer honestly, lads. Are you happy for Hendo to be the starting right centre midfield again this season? If he is, I'd be fuming with Klopp, to be honest.
Yeah, I am smiling. You're right, Grizz.
I knew you'd be.
Okay. Hendo is Marmite, where the Liverpool fan base is concerned. You know, there's some people that absolutely love him. You know, he's somebody that they value immensely, rate immensely, and there are others that don't. I think with Henderson, what I've seen, he's a player that's, 32 now? Mm-hmm. He is somebody that last season, being completely honest, I thought for large stretches of 21-22 did underwhelm. He was not at his peak for a lot of last season. There were a lot of games that I felt he struggled in. And I thought there were some games where in that right-sided midfield role, he did play well. But for me, they were few and far between. And when it comes to title chases, especially against this unbelievable City team, it really does come down to fine margins. And maybe somebody that's a little bit more stronger, who's got a bit more quality in that position, can make that difference. And, Henderson is also somebody that, as I say, is getting on in age. So the legs maybe can't go in the way they could 4 or 5 years ago. And on top of that, last season, he actually had a really good season in terms of his injury record. He was hardly ever injured. In the couple of seasons before that, he was in and out of the team. So he had quite a few injury issues. And obviously, we're hoping that, he will stay healthy this season. But, he has had, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, a lot of injuries. So I am concerned about his durability, the fact he is getting on in age. And also, for me, it's that quality thing, that somebody that has a little bit more in that same position might be able to perhaps offer the attack a bit more, because there were times when we looked at the front three, especially in the closing weeks of last season, where they were really feeling it. They'd played so many games. They were getting leggy, Mo especially. And if they had a bit more support from midfield when it came to that kind of goal threat, that might have helped us in, especially like the Spurs game, for example, which we dropped points in. If we'd won that game, we win the league. And it's fine margins. It's fine margins. But for me, I think, Hendo's been a loyal servant for many, many years for Liverpool Football Club. But I think that, he's clearly somebody who's valued by Klopp. And I think he will more often than not start in that position this coming season. But my preference, like a lot of Liverpool fans, would have been to bring somebody in to play in that role. And I mean, I say all of that at the start of last season. Harvey Elliott looked like Klopp's chosen one because, you know, he was getting a good amount of minutes until he got injured, almost in that kind of same role. And maybe that is what Klopp's long-term plan is that it's Harvey that is intended to be there. And maybe when he gets fully up and running again and he hits his stride, maybe he will replace Hendo in due course. But I think at the start of the new season, the midfield three will likely be Fabinho, Thiago and Hendo.
Errol, I pretty much know your thoughts on it. We've spoken about quite a bit, but is there anything that you wanted to add? I mean, I think Mo's summed it up pretty well, to be honest with you. Yeah,
he's hit the nail on the head for me, and I think Henderson will share a lot of time between the six and that right hand side of the midfield.
I think so. I think that's the only thing I wanted to add onto what Mo was saying. Yeah, was that I wouldn't be furious with Klopp because I can't see myself being furious with Klopp. Now, if that makes me a Klopp arse licker, then so be it. That's my fetish out in the open, right? So I can't be furious with Klopp, but I'd be a bit because I don't think. Pretty much, I think we all agree, and I don't know about the chat how it's sort of would vote, but I think I prefer Hendo in the 6 more than I would this Hendo, this version of Hendo, the 32-year-old, in the 8. And I think that would probably appease more of the fan base if that was so, because I still think he's absolutely crucial to the squad with all the things that we've spoken about on sometimes and off the pitch as well, because I think Fabinho was way overplayed last season as well. So we have to take that into consideration. There will be games where Hendo needs to be played instead of Fabinho. So that would appease the fan base, I think. I don't know if you guys want to add something, but I think we pretty much agree on that, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And all I was going to say was, do you know what hurts me more than anything else? Is that there hasn't been a natural heir to the throne.
Yeah. Well, we tried.
We tried. And you know, you've got to commend the fact that we did try, yeah. But Mo was spot on. I didn't clock. I know he's been here for 10 years, but I didn't realise, Mum. I thought he come here younger than 22. I thought he came as like 20 or something like that. I didn't realise he was actually 32 already. So when you say it like that, the fact that we've not got a 24 to 28-year-old midfielder, and I know we've got Naby, but the fact that we haven't got someone in that age bracket that is chomping at the bit to basically say, he's getting over the hill. This is my season to nail down his spot is what is probably, that's what I'm more furious about than anything. I know we've got Naby, but Naby, again, with that durability has always been the question mark over him. We know he's got an immense ceiling and the talent that he possesses is unreal, but he's just never, ever really been that guy for us. And then when you're looking at Harvey, I love Harvey, but I don't want that level of pressure on such a young, like, it's all right to do it at Blackburn. It's all right to do it in a lower club in the league because there's not the pressure, but the pressure that comes with being a midfielder in a Liverpool, wearing a Liverpool shirt week in, week out is immense. And it's nice when you've got the luxury to be able to bed in these players and drop them in here willy-nilly here and there when you want, because you've got the luxury to do so. But to basically say, this is going to be your make or break season because Henderson's over the hill, I just feel there's a lot to put on his shoulders. So that's where I kick myself. We just haven't got that guy just in that sweet spot of just being in his prime to be able to really kind of put the screws on Hendo to say, it's all right, Gaffer, you take a load off, I'll be your legs and I'll do the running for you this season. Same way when we had Stevie G, just that little bit over the hill, he just decided to drop back a little bit and Henderson was like, right, this is my opportunity now to really step up and show what I'm capable of. And that 13-14 season, he did it excellently. Like, we just haven't got that guy. I don't feel we've got that profile of guy yet, but I'm hoping I'm proved wrong.
Little Man says we don't have a midfield issue. We have a back three issue. All games we dropped points against were back threes. Extra left attacking midfielder gave us issues. Have we got an issue, Mo? Would you say playing against back fives, I guess, probably what he means, like 3 centre-back type scenarios.
And I think that goes back to the point you made earlier about the evolution of the team, because I think that both Klopp and Linders, one of the things that they recognise is that this team like all great teams, need to evolve, because as soon as teams start to figure you out, you have to then move the goalposts and then give them a new set of questions to try and come up with answers to. And I think that's part of the reason why we've brought in Núñez in, because we're looking to evolve the way that we play, the way that we set up our tactics, to keep people on their toes, to keep people guessing. And we saw some of it last season. I mean, Little Man is completely right. We did struggle against teams that, went, on the low block against us and defended in numbers. And, we were struggling to break them down. And, if we look at our record against the top teams in the Premier League last season, it wasn't very good. There were far too many draws there, not enough wins. And, that where we talked about marginal differences earlier on, it's those sort of things where we've got to go back to, if you remember, what was it, 19, 20, 18, 19, our record against the top six was exceptional. We were, beating, your Man Cities, your Arsenals, your Chelseas. Last season, way too many draws against those same teams. So I think that by bringing the Núñez in and perhaps tweaking things tactically, I think that's the way we're trying to change things to have a bit more success against teams that, part the bus, play with the back five. And so I'm not as worried about that. I think that Klopp and Linders know what the issue is far better than any of us, and are already working up plans to address it.
Yeah, I think we done a show, didn't we, Errol, where we spoke about that the coaches will be absolutely analysing that the fact is we drew too many games. Yeah. And they will be trying to work out, despite the margin of error being so small, why that was the case. And as Mo says, the variety of our attacks suggest we're probably better equipped, or I know there's a huge burning question on everyone's, are we weaker than or stronger than last season? But I genuinely think we're stronger.
We've got more unknown factors going into the season. Now that's a double-edged sword, because on one side, opponents don't know what's going to hit them, but on the other side, as Liverpool fans, we don't know what to expect either. Whereas
I think that unexpectedness is worrying a lot of the fan base, and also exciting a lot of the fan base. It depends on what you want. Half glass full or half glass empty. Yeah.
Come on, bro. That's literally what it boils down to for me, because we got so used to knowing what that front three offered until the point that, and as Liverpool fans, we was probably maybe 6 to 8 months ahead of the curve before all the other fans started bantering and clamoring around, Mane's finished, or Bobby's not the same and he's dropped off. We could probably start to see signs that the fluidity that they had, the link-up play, the output is probably starting to become on a downward trajectory. What are we going to do next? Because for me, as much as I love Mane, I kept saying his patterns of play have become predictable. When you've been getting piped by Liverpool for the last 3 seasons, and don't get me wrong, there are still going to be some teams that get piped. They just can't help it. They're going to hold the L. Everton's, Norwich's, they're just going to get it every single time we turn up. But there will be other teams that will literally take away what was happening and study, right, this is how we moved. This is how we did this. This is how we did that. This is how they cut us apart. This is how they cut us open. And when they've watched that repetitively, because there's a whole highlight reel of all this footage now of what these lads have been doing, defenders might not be much better in terms of their own physical abilities and capabilities, but they can actually train the brain to actually say, well, now I know you're standing in that position. I know what you're going to do next. So I'm going to drop off and I'm not going to get touched tight. I'm not going to give you the space to run into. They can make those decisions because they can be drilled into doing that. And I just think over time, apart from Mo being a complete anomaly, the other lads looked as if they had lost that air of surprise and we wasn't able to catch people off guard with quick jabs and hooks like we used to be able to. So what do? Right, we have to restock and get other players now that you don't have. The downside of that from a Liverpool fan's perspective is we don't know what that is going to bring, where the ceiling is going to be for those players now, because we're taking a gamble and we're taking another leap of faith that your ability is going to be befitting of a Liverpool forward's ability that we've seen and been spoilt with over the years. Do you know when I realised, I'm shit with numbers, I'm not going to lie, but you know when I realised that draws handicap you and kill off your season was 08-09, I couldn't actually believe that we had lost the season to Man U that year because we didn't lose that as many games as them. I think they lost like 5 or 6 games and we only lost 3.
Didn't we lose one game?
And I'm still there
Didn't we lose
scratching
1
my
or
head
2
thinking,
games?
how
2
have we
games.
not won? And it was only when someone broke down to me, the draws are only getting you 1 point each time. It's the draws that kill you. And we had like 9 draws that season. And when you look back, it's better to lose a couple more games, but only have 4 or 5 draws for the whole season.
Very quickly, we're gonna. Sorry, go on, Mo.
Well, just very, very quickly. I mean, that season there was a team that got promoted. Probably my least favourite Premier League team of all time, a Tony Pulis team of Stoke City, and we drew against them twice. We drew against them twice.
Yeah.
So if we won those 2 games against Pulis, newly promoted Stoke, we win the league under Rafa.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh my God, I hate that you reminded me of that. Tarek sent in a super chat, but he didn't attach any text to it, so I'm assuming this is what he's wanted to speak about. So, out of respect, I'm going to read it. But I love the way he's mentioned our possibly 4th and 5th choice midfielders, and said we're not good for top 4. We're good for top 4 race, but not for the title race. I mean, we've literally.
You don't have to race. You just walk and stroll.
We've literally just come out of a title race, my brother, with those very players. But look, each to their own opinion. If you think that, if you add in Fabinho and Thiago, who you've sort of missed out, possibly strategically, then I think it's a fairly good set of midfielders. I understand your concerns, maybe possibly though. Liverpool 12th man says Klopp used 4-2-3-1 effectively against low blocks. Bobby in the 10 will be deadly with Mo, Nunes, Diaz, and Jota as interchangeable piece front 5. Mo, do you anticipate? I know there's been a lot of talk about sort of possible formation changes. Do you anticipate anything of that kind? Is that one of the things that we must look into, should look into, as a possible way of breaking down or not getting these draws?
Yeah, I think that, where we are struggling against teams that go for the low block, defending numbers, it's always worth exploring what the options are because, one of the criticisms I would have is that when we saw teams like the classic one last season, unfortunately, I hate to bring this up, but it was the final of the Champions League. We knew exactly what Ancelotti would do, and yet the way that we set up completely and utterly suited the way that he would set up. We didn't try to come up with a tactical approach that would try and do something that would undermine their setup. They aimed to park the Barca numbers. He did it with Napoli time and time again against us in recent seasons. He did it even when he was at Everton a couple of seasons ago. So we knew what he would do, and yet we played right into his hands. And, in the same way, when teams set up very similar to that in the next season, then maybe 4-2-3-1 on the ball might be the right approach to take. And so, I'd be all for that. But I think the general 4-3-3 setup that we have is the one that overall is most suited to the players that we have.
Guys, Saturday, Charity Shield time. Errol, very quickly before we wrap up, because the conversation has flown by. I'm so sorry, guys. We're going a bit over time. Very quickly, your thoughts on the Charity Shield. First and foremost, does it count as a trophy? That's your first part of the question. And B, do you expect us to go full strength? That's it. I'll think of C.
I'll go backwards. It'll be a strong team. I wouldn't say it's full strength because you've not got the complement of Alisson, and without Alisson, we're never going to be full strength. So it'll be a strong complement to obviously go up against City. And to answer the first question, did the community shields get put up on our wall? I don't think they do, bro. So if they don't go on the wall, they're not a big trophy. That's just how I'm seeing it. Do you get me? I'm counting what's on the wall, what's in front of us, and plain to see. The fact that the City, the same way you was with Chelsea when it was the League Cup, I don't care. I'm not big, but it's Chelsea. I just want to beat City. I don't care what we do. I just like to beat City. Beating City is always good for the morale. It's always good for the fan base, and it's always good for the camp. To get that early scalp over them is always good.
Mo, is that pretty much how you feel? And does Charity Shields have any bearing on how the rest of the season's panning out? I'll tell you a very quick story where I think I loved. So in the season that we lost to them in the penalty shootout, I just started working for 90 minutes, and we done a preview show with a Chelsea fan, United fan, the big six. And we lost to Man City on penalties, and they're all mocking me and laughing. And I said, "Oh, Grizz, another top 4 challenge." I said, "You know what? I'm absolutely over the moon with that Charity Shield." And they said, "You just lost." I said, "Yeah, we may have lost the battle, but we're going to win the war." And they laughed at me. They absolutely laughed at me, and it's on film.
I remember that show.
Do you remember?
That was a great.
And they all laughed at me, Mo, and they said, "What do you mean mental war? Like, grow up." I said, "I've seen a performance in that second half. Man City just come off a Centurion season that season." I said, "Man City have never been roughed up like that, like we've roughed them up in that second half." Do you remember we had chance after chance and we just couldn't put it away? And I said, "They've shown me enough, Liverpool, that I think we're going to go on a rampage this season." So it was nothing to do with the Charity Shield result, but the performance and the energy. I thought we were on for something, and we'd won the title. But obviously, we won the title by Christmas, as we spoke about. So, what do you think tomorrow, Saturday? So I should keep saying tomorrow, Saturday. What do you think? Strong team, go strong, psychological edge, and all that, or just no injuries, please?
Well, definitely no injuries. But I agree with Errol. I think that clearly won't be full strength because Alisson won't be starting. But I think the rest of the team will be pretty strong. I think Klopp will look to put a bit of a marker down. And I think the players will want to put a bit of a marker down as well because, they've come off a season, let's not forget, where they came within minutes of winning the Premier League. And, if Villa hadn't choked and, let a 2-goal lead slip, we could well have won that title. All if buts and maybes, of course. Yeah. But, the players will want to prove a point. They look at 18-19. They came off that season having missed out on the Premier League by a point that season, and they went on and dominated the following season. And so I've got a feeling that something similar can happen. Maybe not win by the margin that we did that season, but I think that, this team wants to prove a point to say, look, we're not here to be the bridesmaid every season. We're going to prove a point and look to put a marker down. Even if we don't win, even if we lose by penalties, like you, I'm more keen on the performance and to see that we're ready to go come a week later when we're up against Fulham.
Absolutely. People, we must end it there because we can chat for hours and hours and hours. The chat's been flowing. These guys have been amazing as usual. Mo, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're such a busy man, so I'm really humbled by for you to come on. Short notice again. I always do these short notices ones with you again, but this time I struck gold. Thank you very much for coming on, my friend.
Thank you for having me on. Much appreciated. Thank you, Errol, as well.
And Errol, we're going to catch up in a bit. Hopefully, people are speaking about, as you said, it's glass half full or glass half empty. Just, in a nutshell, are we able to compete? Where's that question gone again? Oh, it's gone now.
We've been people, and the thing is, other fan bases are getting vexed right now because they can't do it themselves. So they're relying on us to do it. And as much as they say they prefer City to win, they're getting bored of City winning every single season. So even other fan bases, even if they don't want to say it publicly, they want us to do the job on City. Can we do it over the course of a season? Yes, we can. Will we do it? Will depend on the context of how the season unfolds. There'll be twists and turns. But if we can roll with the punches, and if we can keep the majority of our key players fit and strong, we will not only run that City team, we will probably be ahead of them and they will have to keep up with us. So there's a good chance that this season it's in our hands, but a lot has got going up in our favour to do that in the first place. Do you get me?
I always like having giving the Errol the last word because he's far more motivated than me. He's far better at it. So hopefully he's done a good job. Lads, thank you very much once again. Hope to see you guys soon. Everyone in the chat, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff helps with the algorithms. My channel has grown only because of the love and support that you guys have shown. I'm so close to a little bit of a landmark for me personally. I know I'm not one of the bigger channels, but for me personally, it's a massive landmark, especially given that I've only been going for about 8 months. Love you all, respect you all. Take care. Hope to see you all very soon.